is not just to be able to let the things go that are hurting, that are stopping you, but to actually call in and to move towards what it is that you do want in your life, what it is that you deserve. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and we are here today to let it go. That's right. We're not in a Disney movie and we're not going to sing our way through to the other side. We actually have to do some deep work to let it go. So I hope you're ready to strap in because I've got a lot of thoughts about this. Before I do, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Tosca DiMatteo, and I am the founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I do the work to help you get unstuck in your career or in your job. If you want to learn more about how I do this through speaking engagements, through one-on-one coaching, and facilitated conversations, you can visit CoachTosca.com. That's CoachTosca.com. All right, I think we're in a perfect moment for this conversation. First of all, by the time this drops, it's going to be March, really close to spring. And it's a great time to really be thinking about what we're letting go of. Letting go of the winter brutal months, letting go of the first quarter of the year, letting go of all the things that aren't serving us, that are holding us back, that are keeping us small, that are keeping us maybe in feelings that we don't want to be in. It's a great time. I love following the seasons. Spring equinox oftentimes is a time where often feels more like the new beginning of the new year. And actually, according to the astrology calendar, right? According to the signs, March actually is the beginning of the year in the zodiac. Anyway, I digress. If you're interested, take a look. It's fascinating stuff. But anyway, look, I have a huge passion for talking to you about this idea of letting go because it is one of those things that we can easily see the memes online about just let that shit go, right? Like you just say it and it's done, right? You just, trick yourself into saying, well, I'm not going to think about that anymore and it's over. And the work is much deeper than that. And the bigger the wounds, the bigger the hurts, the deeper the pain, the more that we kind of have to come back around to letting certain things go over and over again. I wish there was a 3-step process that I could share with you that would solve all your problems of how to let things go. But I don't have that, but I have a whole lot of great counsel because let me tell you, I've got a lot of experience with letting shit go. And it is definitely a full body sport. I'll tell you that. And there may be some things in our life, I'll just say this right off the bat, that we can't ever fully let go. There may be things that are our life lessons, that are our biggest wounds, that we will be in a constant journey of letting go, but that work will deepen and it will get easier and it will get lighter. But there may be things like that in your life to just get real about. A lot of people say that with grief, it's something you learn to carry with you versus be over the process of grief, certain kinds of grief, right? So it's not a mindset thing. And anybody that tells you otherwise, I think they have a lot of work to do personally. Let me just keep it real. But, when we talk about letting go, I think of things like circumstances, relationships, situations, disappointments. It could be about letting go of people. It could be letting go of difficult memories. There's like the list goes on, right? And I can even think about it in terms of letting go of wanting certain aspects of my health to be different, right? Letting go of the fact that my pancreas doesn't work, letting go of the fact that there are certain foods that I just cannot and should not have living with this chronic illness, right? So it can run the gambit. Honor right now what's coming up for you in terms of maybe something that you are ready to let go of or need to let go of. Whatever might be coming up for you is completely valid. And I invite you to pay attention to it. The reason why there is no 3-step process is because every situation is unique and it has its own needs. And your process and needs for letting go will also likely evolve over time. What you may have needed the last time you were in a certain situation is different than maybe what you need now because you're constantly evolving and you may need different tools to access for letting go of different situations. It's all kind of an experimentation. It's all a learning curve. So I think the big message I want you to take in this moment is not to be hard on yourself. If you are frustrated with yourself that like this thing is still hanging on in your mind or in your body, the thing still comes up and it's hard for you to let it go, well, then let me tell you, like that's normal and it's part of the process. And my biggest counsel around that is to honor that you can take actions. I don't subscribe to that idea that time heals all wounds. Now, sure, time can provide perspective on things, but truly doing the work of transformation and truly doing the work of letting go is about taking certain actions to help you to do so. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the tools that you can use right now to support you in that. You can even think about letting go as letting go of a version of yourself, letting parts of you die off that are no longer needed or serving you. And those are, I think, some of the biggest cycles of letting go because we get really attached to our feelings and our emotions and the patterns that we have, and letting go of those patterns and really claiming for yourself, I'm ready for the next iteration of me, is transformational. So let's jump right in to some of those tools. In this moment, I'm thinking even about the cycle of the moon. And if you've tuned into my content for a while, you may know that I like to follow the moon cycles, right? There is a natural process of the moon getting full and the moon releasing and letting go. And so that could even be a really great cycle for you to pay attention to in evaluating where am I in my process, in my emotions, in what's happening, what's ready to be let go of. And you can Google all kinds of stuff around the moon and journaling exercise if that calls to you. If you realize that, you know what, I do pay attention to the moon or I do look up at the moon. And there is something about the moon that intrigues me. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to what your intuition is saying to you right now. The tools around letting go for me are not just about the words that you're saying in your head. It is really a full body experience, especially for those big things that tend to hang on. Literally letting go of what's stored in the body. If you know anything about somatic work, if you know anything about how energy works and our bodies work, then you may know that our body stores our life experiences. There's actually a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And if this is new for you, if you've never heard the word somatic healing or somatic experience, then look into it. There's so much there. I could do a whole episode about it. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, but what I will say is I have definitely done somatic healing work in my journey. I spent 6 years doing cranial sacral therapy work. And that whole modality is about releasing and letting go of what has been stored in the body. And I mean this from physical things that we've endured and from mental things that we've endured, spiritual things that we've endured. Personally, right? I have had dozen surgeries in my life before the age of 22. My body has definitely held on to some things from that. And I learned different modalities and tools to let that trauma be released. Because, truth be told, even if I was being put under, right, my body was still going through trauma. Maybe that's a new concept for you. Maybe you never thought about your experiences in that way. For me, I never looked at my experiences that way until I was on that journey of transformation and healing and growth. And I was like, wow, my body has been through a lot. And it took me a while to even realize there is some letting go that I need to do of what's happened to my body, let alone emotional things and mental things, right? So, tools include things that have to do with your body and not just your mind. So that's yoga. Yoga is releasing and stretching, right? Yoga is very much a physical activity that can be used for release. It can be used for restoration. It can be used for a lot of different things. But if it calls to you to think about yoga in this way, definitely look into it. I think that there's actually a lot of misunderstanding about what a yoga practice can actually do for you. And it's not really just about being long and lean, if you know what I'm saying. There's also, right, energy work, Reiki, if that sounds familiar to you. There's all kinds of energy work if you have ever been exposed to it. And if you haven't, and if this is your first time, again, pull out your phone, start looking into energy work. If it calls to you, there's so many different types that will help you in the process of letting go. Letting go can also be done in community. There is something really powerful about expressing yourself, about releasing things with witnesses. And in fact, if you missed the episode that I did with Deb Driscoll on this podcast, I highly recommend you go back and you listen to it. It was about how community can support inner critic work, and it can absolutely support the work of letting go of the past, letting go of people, of situations, and all the things. This may come to a surprise to you, but dreams can also be a way that you can work on what needs to be let go of. In my experience, I use dreams as a way to better understand what my subconscious is processing. And for a long time in my life, actually, I didn't remember my dreams, but I made a conscious effort to remember my dreams. And it took me years of developing and setting that intention, but I did. And one quick story I'll share about how dreams supported me in letting go. And it's been a number of different ways, right? It's been showing me what my subconscious might be processing. But this story I want to share is about one time when I was going through an experience with a relationship and I felt like, oh man, I think this relationship is over. This was with a relationship actually with somebody that was supporting me in my spiritual growth work and my personal development work. I said, look, if this relationship is meant to dissolve, universe, whatever you believe in, send me a sign, send me a clear sign that I can understand. And that very same night, I had a dream that was very clear to me that this relationship was over. And look, these types of things don't always work for me, show me a sign. But part of it is building that practice for yourself. That's a whole nother episode on the Unlock Lab. But I'm sharing this to say that there are some surprising tools out there that can support you in letting go if you stay open to learning about them, to exploring them, and experimenting with them. Journaling is a big tool for letting go because what it does is it enables you to process your feelings, to really understand what is truth versus illusion. And it gives you an opportunity to actually name things, not just name your feelings, but name what was going on. And that can go a really long way into being able to let things go because you can see them more clearly. It is a process itself of releasing. Literally using the pen to paper is release. So if journaling is something that you've been resistant to, and there's a lot of reasons why people are resistant to journaling, I really encourage you to give it a try. And if one of the fears you have is that somebody's going to read what you wrote, then know that you can burn that thing the minute after you write it. Like you don't have to keep the journaling. You can get rid of it. You don't have to hold on to it. In fact, the whole point of release is there are some exercises that you can journal and literally burn it with the intention of letting it go. And this may sound silly to you. I get it. There was a time in my life where it would have sounded silly to me too. But really, it just comes back to intention. The intention of letting things go is really powerful. And then the action that you take to support that intention, you can play with it, have fun with it, experiment with it. One time, like true story, I literally went through the process of burning some old stuff. And I didn't want to like throw it in the garbage. I literally wanted to burn it. And I started burning it out on my balcony of my Brooklyn brownstone. And it got so smoky. And such a dark smoke that actually somebody called the fire department on me. Anyway, all was well. I did not actually, create a fire. It was a fire in my little bucket. But I digress. If you're going to burn things, do it safely. Disclaimer. One of the other great tools of letting go is actually to take an action or take actions that honor what you do want rather than the thing that you're letting go of, right? So, if, for example, one of the things you want to let go is a mindset of financial scarcity, then maybe what you do is you decide, you know what, I am going to give away $1 a day for the next 30 days. And so, what you're calling in is something else. You're calling in generosity with your resources rather than a hoarding scarcity mindset. So, you're picking up what I'm putting down. Think of what is the opposite of what you're letting go of. Maybe if you're letting go of a relationship that ran its course that you realized was toxic for you, maybe the action that you can take is to spend time with the people that fill your cup. Spend time with the people that you want to develop relationships with so that you can see what else is possible for relationships. And so that is taking an action towards what you do want versus focusing all your attention on letting go of what you don't want. One of my favorite tips is getting a change of scenery. When you're in big transformational moments or when you feel like you've been stuck in the same thought pattern or behavior pattern, getting a change of scenery is immensely helpful. And it doesn't mean you have to go and spend thousands of dollars on a trip. It can just be about going somewhere new and breaking your patterns. It could be about going to the local library. It could be about going to a museum, going to a movie that you wouldn't normally see, taking a different path on your walk in your neighborhood. But changing the scenery, changing your patterns can really help break up perhaps the monotony or the patterning around what you're trying to shift for yourself. One of the things that I've had to let go of, right, in my entrepreneurial journey is this idea of how comforting a regular paycheck is, right? Like for years, I was mourning that I didn't have that I had to go and get a paycheck for myself, right? That was part of the process of being an entrepreneur. And I had to let go of this notion that I wish I had a consistent paycheck because I was choosing a different life. I was choosing a different way. Letting go of that meant that I had to remind myself of what I was saying yes to. And this goes kind of hand in hand with the example I just gave around putting your time and energy into the things that you are calling in. And that will support you in the process of letting go of what needs to be let go of. I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is letting go of expectations over and over and over again. And that's different from having standards of how one is treated. Let's not get that twisted. What I'm really talking about letting go of expectations is to be unattached to outcomes because sometimes we can stress ourselves out over holding on to what we hope happens as opposed to staying open to something even better happening that we have no idea about. Letting go of our attachment to things. This is kind of steeped also in kind of the Buddhist Dharma. But if it calls to you to look into an attachment, do it. It can be life changing. Another thing that I'm thinking of, even in this moment of time, right, is that we can also get hooked on things like the news cycle. So, how do you even let go of that? How do you let go of being obsessed with something? Maybe the obsession is the news. Maybe the obsession is food. Maybe the obsession is, I don't know, fill in the blank. And my biggest counsel is to move into action, especially in regards to this idea about the news cycle, because we can get so overwhelmed and distracted and forget that we have agency and we have power to change our life, to take action. And just that simple act of doing something can help us to feel better and to let go of the patterns, the thoughts, the feelings that are dragging us down. One of the things that can make it difficult, this process of letting go is when we have people in our life that either shame us or make us feel guilty for still having feelings about things, for not being able to fully let go of how somebody made us feel or something made us feel. And that's not on you to carry that. That is somebody projecting, that is somebody maybe not understanding your process of what you're going through. And you can choose to hold boundaries with those people that are making you feel bad about your process and about your journey. Maybe that means you don't talk to them about that particular thing. Or maybe that means you say to them, look, I don't need you to tell me these things. It's not helpful. Actually, it makes me feel worse. So just know that if that's happening, that can make it harder to do the letting go when you're also feeling shame and guilt about your experiences, right? I really hope that what I've talked about today with you has been helpful. It is not for the faint of heart to really do the work of letting go. Time in and of itself is not going to be the thing that helps you transform. Because what I want for you is not just to be able to let the things go that are hurting, that are stopping you, but to actually call in and to move towards what it is that you do want in your life, what it is that you deserve. And letting go can be as simple as letting go of the limiting beliefs that you have. I shouldn't say as simple. It's hard, right? I've been on like a lifelong journey of letting go of my limiting beliefs and calling in new beliefs and believing that more is possible for me. But I have to decondition myself from what I've been saying to myself. I have to let go of that version of me that didn't believe that amazing things were possible for me. And it has been a process. I use all the tools in my toolbox. I mean, I've shared with you a lot of them. And I encourage you to explore and experiment for yourself with what works for you. I mean, I've said before, I use Oracle card decks in my process. What I love is that Oracle decks are just another way to imprint a new thought into me so that I can let go of the thoughts and the situations that are not working in my favor. So, look, if you enjoyed this podcast, I hope you share it with somebody that could really use it. And please feel free to rate, review, and like this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. I would so appreciate that. And I always love to hear from you. So whether you leave a comment on the platform, whether you reach out to me with all my contact being in the show notes, I'd love to hear the tools that you have in your toolbox to let go. And maybe that's even singing a song. Because yes, that is one of the tools that can help us release. Using those vocal cords are certainly helpful. And I will spare you from singing the Disney song that we all know is coming to mind right now. All right, because we are not living in a Disney movie right now. That is for darn sure. We are living in reality, and reality means we have to do the work to get to the next chapter of our life, the next chapter of what's possible. Letting go is part of that work. So I am cheering you on. I know you can do it. I know it may not happen on the timeline that you want. It's not in our control. What's in our control is doing the best we can to take the actions to change our own life because it is our choice. Nobody else's choice. We are not going to get rescued by a knight in shining armor. We got to do it for ourselves. We got to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and do the thing that's going to get us to a new place. And I know you can do it, and I'm cheering you on. And I'm so glad you were here today to get some tools in your toolbox. Until next time, ciao for now.